Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the PowerTalk Show powered by Business Talks Weekly. Our guest today is a tech entrepreneur, tech investor, tech founder, and he is the author of more than 60 books, John Cousins. Welcome to the Power Talk Show, John.
Hello, Navin. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is our honor to have you. John, can you tell us a bit about your professional background and what led to the creation of MBA ASAP?
Well, thank you, and I'll try to keep the story short because it's my whole life's journey basically
Yeah.
led me to this. I think I'm a tech entrepreneur, and I started out as an engineer. That's the sort of tech part that I really loved, and I went to university for electrical engineering, and I was very interested in. I also got a degree in electronic music and media production. I was very interested in music at the time and pop culture, and wanted to be a rock and roll star. Basically, was what I wanted to do. And I ended up working in recording studios. And that was my first career, was working in rock and roll recording studios in New York. And then from there, I got a job with a large equipment manufacturer. It was out of Silicon Valley, one of the early Silicon Valley companies, Ampex. And they made magnetic tape and audio recorders and video recording machines. And from there, I got trained up there. And then I got the television networks at the time would poach the engineers from Ampex to come work for them because they had all the equipment and they needed it repaired and all. So I worked for ABC Television in the United States, which was a worldwide network. Back then, there were 3 networks. It wasn't like today where you have streaming services and everything. And so it was pretty limited what kind of TV was on. And I worked for sports and news. I was in broadcast operations and engineering and designed and built facilities for the network so that they could put on their television shows. And I did that for about a decade, traveling all over, doing Olympics, Winter Olympics in Sarajevo, Yugoslavia, and all kinds of sporting events and news events in the United States and around the world. And it was really great. That was through my piece. And I sort of topped out on that career. And all the guys that were working there were, maybe 20 years older than me. I was in my late 20s. They were, late 40s, 50. They weren't going anywhere. They weren't going to retire for another 10, 15 years. And so I couldn't really move up. And back then, all the networks actually got bought. There was the time of leverage buyouts were the big thing, and getting cheap debt and then buying companies and then trimming them down and all that. And it got to be a sort of a stable business where it wasn't as exciting anymore. And I'd been there a decade, learned everything I could. So then I sort of jumped out and went to business school. And I went to the University of Pennsylvania, the Wharton Business School, which is where all the what they call the quant jocks would go, the quantitative people, the engineers, to learn finance, to learn the numbers side of business. And so I did that. And I had decided by then that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't want to work for anybody else. I wanted to develop technical, products and then sell them to markets and be my own boss and all that. And so that's basically what I did. I moved to the Southwest, where I still live in the high desert outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so I started working with other people and making companies. And through that process, I made over a dozen companies. I took 2 of them public, on the stock markets. And then I was a public company CFO and CEO for about 15 years. And through that whole process, I also got tired or just had, it's always drama, right? As you're doing these things, it can be. And so I got tired of partners because it'd be problems with partners. I got tired of big customers because they would, want to design specific things for them and their business. And I wanted to design products that I could scale and sell to lots of people. I got tired of investors because investors, it's basically like hiring yourself a boss. All of a sudden, all they care about is when you're going to make me money and get me more money. And I got tired of employees, managing employees. Although I love that, developing people, it can also be a lot like glorified babysitting, like everybody has a problem. Everybody has to do this. Everybody wants more money, blah, blah, blah. As the technology has evolved, I've become a solopreneur, where it's just basically, I always say, it's me and the robots. Everything is automated, and I sell only digital first, digital products. So it's just downloadable. My markets are worldwide. And I've come to really like that. Now it feels more like a, play than it feels like work, and like Naval Ravikant said, if you can find something that feels like play to you, but looks like work to everybody else, you've made it. That's basically how the technical platform of MBA ASAP, which is digital downloads, videos, PDFs, cheat sheets delivered all over the world. And I have customers in 168 countries. So really all of more than 40,000 students I've had. And I just love that, that I can have markets everywhere and I don't have to I have no working capital involved in inventory or products. It's just one person can download it or 1,000 people can download my products and it costs me no more, to do the volume. So I love that from a scaling standpoint. I really love scaling a business. And why I found that the products that I do is that, I got my MBA. I took 2 years. I spent a whole bunch of money to, tuition, $100,000 a year at Wharton. And I didn't work for 2 years, so I didn't get income. And I had a young family. So I dug myself a $500,000 hole to do that. And afterwards, I was wondering, is that really the smartest way to do it or the only way? Plus, I had to move to Philadelphia. And then I started, as I went through this, I started teaching, in different university programs. My sister was teaching finance. And I thought, that's so cool. I'd love to interact with students and, sort of, polish up my knowledge on these subjects. And so I started teaching. And as I started teaching, I realized in the academic, classroom, the textbooks are this thick, 800 pages on accounting, 800 pages on finance, 800 pages on marketing, and they're a little bit outdated, and things. And so what I started to do was like, from my experience of using those tools and those topics, I thought I can boil that down to 50 pages or less, and I started realizing the students loved that because then they could really have a context. Like these are the fundamentals. These are the things that you use every day. The other things that make up a 800-page textbook may be academically and intellectually interesting, but they're not the kind of things that you're going to use as you're trying to grind it out, in the world of business.
Yeah.
So I really try to use the lens of my experience to filter this material and condense it down to just the fundamentals, the things you really need to know and that you can use and you can use them right away. And that's the ASAP part. MBA is Master of Business Administration, the degree, and ASAP is an American acronym for as soon as possible. Just
Yeah.
give me the straight things, and that's what I try to deliver to people. Just give me the straight things so I can start using them in my business, in my career, or whatever. Or even if I'm studying for an MBA, give me these tools quickly so that I can, perform better in my courses. So that's the kind of stuff that I deliver, and that's how I got here, and that's sort of my trajectory and what my products are.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, John, for sharing that with us. John, as you mentioned, you are working with in more than 160 countries and you have worked with more than 40,000 students. So who are your students? Are they students or are they corporate individual people, professionals with 3, 5 years of experience trying to learn something?
Navin, that's a great question. And yeah, that's one of the parts of marketing. And my marketing is to get your customer archetypes, the personas that you're addressing so that your messaging and your marketing materials are spot on to targeted markets. And it's basically, I would say, three categories. One is young people that are aspirational, want to get ahead in the world, want to understand how to navigate the business world. And this is a simple and quick way to get that information. So they could be students and also people that are in mid-career, say. They're maybe in their 30s or 40s and they maybe feel stuck on the career ladder. And it might be because they maybe studied whatever subjects, but they don't know how to read financial statements like a balance sheet and a cash flow statement, an income statement. So they can't integrate with the accounting and number side of their company. And so they haven't been able to rise up to higher levels of management, and get up into that C-level suite. So it's those kind of people as well. And it's also people that run small businesses. It could be a baker or a car mechanic shop, and they know their business, a plumber, know their business really well, but they still have to maybe go to the bank to get a loan. So they have to make financial statements to present to the bank, or maybe they have to talk to their accountant or their tax person. And so they need to know how, and they need to keep better track of their business. So they need to know accounting. So they know how much money's coming in, how much their expenses are, and how much they're actually
Yeah.
making. So, and how better to market, how to create awareness campaigns and
Mhm.
how to bring people in the
Mhm.
door, and then how to manage and lead and hire people so they could, scale up their businesses. So I would say it really falls into those three categories, and in every case, I'm just amazed at how many people around the world are aspiring to be better, and one way is through knowing business skills so you can create wealth and that gives you more freedom to do the things you really want to do. It can help your family, all those kind of things, making money and having a job that you really like instead of going to a job, 9 to 5 that you really don't like that much. And the years are going by and you're doing, why am I doing this? What's my purpose in life? What I'm trying to do is help people to get out of that and become entrepreneurs, to really. And I also think in this day and age when, we have artificial intelligence, quantum computing, we're going through a lot of disruption that's going to be happening. And
Mhm.
working for a big company may not be as safe as it used to be. It's getting more risky. A company can be leapfrogged by a technologically more advanced company, and suddenly everybody gets laid off and you're out of a job and then you don't know what to do. It's better to be an entrepreneur, I think, where you're navigating your own path and you're controlling your own destiny to more of a degree. And so even though that seems riskier in a lot of cases to people, I think it actually is maybe more safe in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. What are actually investors looking at when it's look at technology currently? With AI platforms, where is the most amount of investment going, even in AI?
Well, right now, I think, like you say, Nevin, the investment is really flowing into AI driven companies. They are And then those companies in turn, the Googles, the Metas of the world, Teslas, are then investing in making more AI infrastructure in AI, where they're building these giant server farms because it's an arms race. Like who's going to be, the top company? Because we know that in this day and age, really it's usually winner takes most or winner takes all. It's one dominant company and the other companies fall by the wayside. So all these companies are scrambling to build enough infrastructure and to develop new models so that they can be that dominant company like Google is or Meta. And so a lot of money is flowing into those places, and they may be overheated and overpriced at this time, though. What I like to look at sometimes with investments and also with entrepreneurial projects is to look at, instead of trying to predict where the future is going to be in the next 5 years, 10 years, which is really difficult right now because things are rapidly changing and we're on these exponential growth paths. It's hard to predict what is going to change, what kind of convergences of technologies are going to create what environment. Another way to look at things that I think is really powerful is to, instead of trying to think of what's going to change and how do I be at that place, is to think about what's going to stay the same and what skill sets can I get that are going to relatively stay the same. And that's where I think these MBA skills, especially on the number side of business, are going to stay the same. So really understanding bookkeeping, accounting, reading financial statements, because if you're going to invest too, you really want to understand the finances of a company, and looking at the financial statements to be able to dissect them is very important. And then corporate finance, understanding how to project, forecast cash flows into the future, and then discount them back to a present value so you can get a valuation for a company. So you have good valuation methodology. So you can invest in income producing assets, stocks, bonds, real estate, rental real estate, things like that. And you know how to value those income streams into the future so that you know whether it's a good deal or not to buy. I think
Yeah,
those skills
absolutely.
are going to stay the same. And so learning those skills is a fundamental set of tools that you can be relatively confident are going to remain the same for the next decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, while everything else is just changing like crazy.
Absolutely. John, I want to understand when you talk about content and the MBA ASAP program that you have, are you planning to put this across into a course and provide it as an LMS model on a SaaS model to your users?
Yes, as a SaaS model, as a software as a service type of model, I have the courses set up now as one-time payment, and then you go through a course, and then you get a little diploma and badge for your LinkedIn profile at the end. But I've also developed a community where it's more of a SaaS model. It's over time you can be in there as long as you want. I have all of my course materials in there. I do bi-weekly meetups with everybody to talk about things, and I'm continually adding new content. And the nice thing about the community too is you can do it at your own pace. It's asynchronous, right? You can download videos and consume them really rapidly, or you could do it at a more moderate pace, 15 minutes a day or something like that. And it's whatever your pace allows you to do with your lifestyle. And then also I found that videos are really great because people can repeat them and they can watch them over and over. I know when I was in a classroom, if I'm listening to a teacher and suddenly I look out the window and daydream for 5 minutes, I lost what they were saying, and I can't ask them, "Could you rewind 5 minutes, please?" But with a video, you can do that. So from a pedagogical standpoint, from a teaching standpoint, if you're stuck on one thing, you can listen to it 5 times until you really understand it. And so, yeah, I'm doing that SaaS model. And the other thing is nice about that is with the community is it's not just me talking and disseminating the information. All the people in there, the community can interact amongst themselves. And so that's been really helpful too. People can ask a question and other people chime in. It's a support group, it's all those kind of things that the interaction among all the students, I think, is incredibly valuable, not just me dictating in one direction to the students. So yeah, that's been super valuable and fun. Yeah, great question.
You are kind of a coach, you are kind of a mentor, right? So where do you see, currently we are in an AI era, but in the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see young students or young profession invest themselves so that they stay ahead of the curve in the 10 years?
Well, that's a really difficult question. I think this is a difficult time to be a futurist. And if you go back in time and look at even like, I remember in the 80s, there was a big book, Megatrends. And before that in the 60s, a big book called Future Shock. And they talked about the one thing in Future Shock that I thought is really prescient is one of the things we really need to learn skills is accelerated learning. How do we learn quickly? Because what that author said was one of the big skill sets in the future is going to be, which is now, is to be able to learn fast and to be able to unlearn and then relearn. And unlearning, I think, is a key step because as things change rapidly, we have to be able to say, wait a minute, this no longer suits me. This is no longer appropriate. It's been marginalized. I have to unlearn that and relearn the new way. It's like if you're a computer coder, right? You have to first learn one language, and then 3 years later, it's a whole new language you have to learn. So you discard, whatever you were learning at that point, and learn a new one. And being able and comfortable with that sort of loop of learning fast, learning a lot, and then unlearning what's no longer applicable and then relearning new stuff and being comfortable with that is really going to serve people in the future. As Darwin said, it's not the strongest or the smartest that survive, it's the most adaptable. And we have to be willing to adapt quickly. And that's one really strong thing I would say. So really understanding that what you learn now and what you learn in school may not be applicable in 5 years. You may have to discard that and learn something new. And so being comfortable with that type of growth mindset and an ability to look towards what is the new thing and being opportunistic for when something comes up, jumping on it right away and moving forward. Yeah. And I think another thing that's been overlooked in this age is reading. I think reading is now a superpower, and people that can concentrate and read a long form, like a book length thing on a subject, have an advantage over people that are consumed by just scrolling quickly and superficially and never really deep diving into topics so they can become, develop expertise. So I think that's another overlooked thing. Old school.
And that's very interesting take, because now I want to know from you, apart from the books that you have written, recommend any 3 books every professional entrepreneur founder should read.
Well, let me think for a second. And well, one that I just finished and I think is really great. It's a brand new book. It's by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and another fellow he wrote it with. And it's called Scaling. It's all about scaling a business, and what his big concept there is to use time as a way to filter. And instead of saying, here, I'm going to, in the next 10 years, or 5 years, I'm going to 10x my business, say I'm going to do that in 1 year. And what do I have to do that? And what that does is make you have these really impossible goals that you set, and you use that as a filter to understand what you're doing now. Much of it is just not useful for that kind of goal, and getting ready, discarding that. It's like unlearning, discarding that, whether it's, getting rid of some employees that are too, invested in the status quo, or other type of investments, or ways of spending your time, and really focusing on what are the things that I need to do to make that goal. And so that I found was a really great book. And let's see, that's the only one I can really think of right now that was really powerful that I read. But there's just hundreds of, actually, in my
Yeah.
community. I have a whole, book club and book thing where I recommend a bunch of, the 48 Laws of Power is a great book to read, by Green, and you know, even some of the older, How to Influence People and Make Friends, the Andrew Carnegie book, not Andrew Carnegie, Dale Carnegie book, for social skills. I think those are really important. Negotiations books. There's a one, Never Split the Difference. That's a fantastic negotiations book. And Getting to Yes is another, from the Harvard negotiation thing, is a really great negotiations book, because
Wow.
I really believe in this day and age, we're assembling mosaics of talent and then discarding them as we go through different phases of a business. Because as an entrepreneur, you're scaling up that business, and it's very difficult to take it from a little business to a big business. Like Mark Zuckerberg is very impressive that he stayed on top of Meta through all of those phases. A lot of times, investors and others will say, well, you were great at the startup phase, but now we need somebody for managing the growth phase and leading that.
Yeah.
And that's a different set of skills. And we need to bring in a new leader, to be able to do all those kind of things. And the way that we do that is negotiations. You don't get what you want in life, you get what you negotiate. So I would say there's three books right there: The 48 Laws of Power, Never Split the Difference, and Benjamin Hardy's Scaling book.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, John, for that. One piece of advice did you get that changed your professional and personal life?
And I would go back to Naval Ravikant, and the advice that he gave, if you can build and you can sell, you're unstoppable. And so those are the two things, from a technical standpoint, if you can build products, if you know how to build products, and we have all kinds of platforms now to help us do that. If you can build products and you know how to market and sales and the social skills that go along with customer facing, activities, you're really unstoppable. Those are the two sides of things. And then no matter what you do, no matter what happens, you can always land on your feet and do things. So I think that's the best
Absolutely.
piece of advice that I've received.
Absolutely. And still, thank you so much, John. Thank you so much for sharing us the information and the insight. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
Navin, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. It was really a pleasure.